Scott's Geography Notebook. Did you want to try saying it?
Da, da, da.
Now that we've talked about what it is and where it is and why we care, I want to talk a little bit about transpiration. And I drew my little picture of the flower. Now, this whole process is pretty darn cool, and it's part of, oh, we don't need that one yet, part of the circulatory system for these trees. Okay, now I plucked this guy off of our oak tree, but most every plant is going to have its leaves. So what do we know so far? We know that the plant, in order to survive, will be, let's put in our layer of dirt. Good. It's going to have its roots that go down into the soil. Those roots go every which way, and they tap into the soil moisture that we really need there in order to sustain the life. Now, as those roots are pulling up that water, it's also going to be pulling different nutrients from there. It's kind of part of the circulatory system for this particular plant. Now, let's bring in my little plant right there, and that's going to have the roots that go down in there. Cool. And on my plant, I've got my little leaves. Now, in this leaf, we're going to be pulling the moisture up through the stems. There's going to be the different circulatory parts of that plant. It gets to the stem, and then it gets out to the leaf. And on the bottom side of the leaf, it's too small to see. We can't actually see them because they're microscopic. But there's going to be small little openings. Now, we know that this tree, in order to survive, or plant, or whatever it has, needs some carbon dioxide. So what it's going to need to have coming into it is CO2, carbon dioxide, and that's going to be one of the things that this plant does. That happens on the very bottom of the leaf. On the bottom of the leaf, we have little cells. These guys are called stomata. And the stomata are going to open up to let in some carbon dioxide, because this is where the photosynthesis happens and this is where it needs it. So the stomata open up and say, carbon dioxide, please come in. CO2 goes in. But as that CO2 goes in, there's stuff that escapes. What escapes is a byproduct of photosynthesis. The first byproduct is O2, oxygen. And by the way, this also makes people happy. So don't go plucking these off unless you are doing them in the name of science. Good. So the stomata open, they let in carbon dioxide into the stomata. Coming out of that, sometimes they're called guard cells. Guard cells on the bottom of the leaf, usually. O2 comes out, and then also what comes out is water. And that water that comes out, that's going to be coming from the soil moisture all the way out to the leaf, to the stem, to the leaf, and as it reaches that leaf that's there, comes out, and that water that escapes is what we have talked about before. That's referred to as transpiration. And so moisture that leaves directly from the surface or from the dirt and evaporates is called evaporation. All right. If it's going to be coming through the plant, then we call it transpiration. Tons of water is lost through transpiration. Your average tree is going to be losing about 925 gallons per day. Now, I'm guessing that that's going to be during our major growing season, middle of summer, but corn, an acre of corn, of which we grow a whole heck of a lot of it, again, in the middle of its growing season, but it's requiring 15,850 gallons of water per year, per month? No, per day. That is just a bunch of water that it starts to lose. Okay, what makes it higher or lower? That depends on a lot of different things, right? So a few of the factors that can influence this. First off, how much wind that we have. Well, it's all about the water evaporating. So really, it's going to be about the humidity If you're in a very humid area, then you don't get a lot of evaporation. You don't get a lot of transpiration either. If you're in a very dry area like the desert, like Southern California, then the humidity is going to be lower and you're going to be losing a lot. The overall temperature of the air is going to be influencing that. Warm air holds more moisture, and so more of that's going to be going away. Wind can blow along and can strip away some of the plant moisture off of these plants. By the way, the desert ones have some awesome adaptations so that all of these guys aren't as much of an influence, right? So overall temperature, if it's hot, we're going to get more transpiration. If it's dry, we get more transpiration. If it's windy, we get more transpiration, right? And the reverse would be true for the other ways, right? And that's going to be our transpiration.